In the world of emergency response, every caller feels like their issue, no matter what it may be, is the most important call going on. And to them it is. But when you are trying to allocate resources for a jurisdiction which might have dozens or hundreds of calls, there will necessarily have to be choices made as to which calls are responded to most urgently. This is Lifeline. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lifeline 911 with your host, Erica.
Hello.
I'm your co host, Gary, and today we are discussing call prioritization. So many times when people call 911, they always think that they are in the biggest emergency possible. And to them, it may very well be. But in a 911 center, whether you're dispatching police, fire, or EMS, you have to make
Mhm.
sure that your resources, which are limited, are going to the most urgent calls first. And this can cause frustration, I think, with the citizens who are in need of assistance or help,
Yeah.
to
I
put it mildly.
that's just putting it just a little bit, just a little bit. But you know what I think that is more I think it's more that they don't understand.
Hmm.
And I think as a profession, I'm not sure we've done the best job at educating them
Okay.
on what that the reasons we do the things that we do and why. What is a priority 1 or what is a priority 0 for us because it's 0 through what is it, 4? I seem to forget about the 4 down there somewhere because I never almost never see it.
And again, that's just our agency, how we
Yeah,
prioritize.
yeah,
Other agencies can do it however they want. There's no
mhm.
set, well, I guess Pro QA has a standard of sorts,
Yeah, they do, yeah,
but there's no universal standard.
yeah, yeah,
And kind of going to your point, people I think have in their heads that like when I have an emergency, I call 911 and
mhm,
help will show up almost immediately. When
yes,
for the majority of callers, that's really not the case. And that's not necessarily due to a lack of officers. It's just different calls are going to be responded to slower than others because
yeah,
it's not that they're not as important, but they're not as urgent.
yeah, and that is absolutely true, and I think the public does not know. Yeah, I think them not knowing is more accurate than them not understanding that even our priorities are, you said, malleable or fluid even. They
Hmm.
change based on the amount of information we get. If your call is that someone was shot, okay, that's going in based on those words right there as the highest of the high that we have
Hmm.
until the call taker is starting to do their interview and they find out it was 20 minutes ago
Hmm.
or an
Yeah.
hour ago. And actually, no one shot them. They shot themselves in the foot an hour ago, cleaning their gun. There's no, and yeah, it was, and actually, it wasn't really the foot, it was the pinky toe, and the toenail flew off. Do you
Some
see
good
that how
shooting
the call
text.
do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. Yeah.
the call goes from holy mother of crap, send everybody to, yeah, that's still not great, but we don't, okay, not everybody has to go, down
Hmm.
to, wait, what?
You clipped your
He shot
toenails with
his
a 9 mil.
what?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's exactly how it happens. I don't
Hmm.
know how many times when I was taking calls, even in Denver, that I would go, I'd be, I get this call and I get this information and I'm like, it's time to go, all hands on deck. And as I'm doing wait, what? What happened?
Yeah.
Hold on. You said what? And they
Hmm.
did, and with literally in the span of a minute, I go from this to now I'm trying to understand. And in my uh I'm trying to understand and figure out what's happening now. I remember, oh snap, I have to bring down this priority because everybody on the other side of the room still thinks they have a shooting with a suspect still on scene and all the things, and it's actually a toenail gone bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I guess I kind of was thinking about this topic because read online a story about a guy who is probably apocryphal, but he called and was like, "Hey, somebody's burglarizing my detached garage," and so they were like, "Okay, just lock your doors, stay inside, and we don't have any units available. We'll get them out to you as soon as we can." And then he's says, "Okay," and he hangs up and he calls back 30 seconds later. He's like, "Hey, I just shot those guys that were burglarizing my garage." And then he's like, then, six cars came up and like the police were there. And then the police questioned him. They're like, looks like you didn't tell us the truth when you said somebody was shot. And then he replied, "Looks like you didn't tell me the truth when you said you didn't have any resources available." And I think that's kind of
Yeah.
how a lot of people feel about things in terms of like,
Yeah.
I'll just um, uh, bump up what's actually happening in order to get a faster response.
Yeah.
Not only is that illegal in
It
many
is.
cases, but more importantly, like when you do that, you're taking the resources away from a call that actually is happening where
Mhm.
somebody is getting stabbed, somebody may be getting raped, somebody may have been run over, and
Yeah.
while people burglarizing your detached garage is like an urgent, an important call, um, you know, it's
It's not the same.
yeah, and you as a as an entity, police, fire, and EMS have to make those distinctions between where do I send my limited resources to do the most good.
Yeah.
Uh, on the EMS side, are you going to send it to somebody who's, you know, was building something and they, shot a nail through their hand, or do you send it to somebody who's having a heart attack? You're always going to send it to somebody who's having a heart attack.
Yeah.
So,
Because you have to, and that speaks to our, not just the prioritization, but the critical thinking that has to go into that,
hmm
because your call takers and dispatchers are in the moment as the information is being fed to them, making decisions, split second decisions. And it may start in one direction and pivot into a completely different one and go back up. And we've been sitting there watching calls go up, down in priority. And we're like, what is happening? What is the call taker doing? But
hmm
literally, they're just responding to they're doing what they should be doing, which is interviewing to find out what resources will be sent and how will they be sent and how fast will they be sent, or if they'll be sent at all. And all of that can happen on the same call.
Yeah, yeah, and it's um, not just an arbitrary decision that's been being made by the police officers, the medics, or the fire personnel. These are decisions that are calibrated to try and do the most good because again there's limited resources to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of, and
Yeah.
sometimes you know like a low priority call where nobody's life is threatened has to wait.
Mhm.
And
And
yeah.
life over property, the choice is always going to be property.
hmm
I mean,
yeah.
sorry, I said that wrong. Life over property, it will always, if given a choice, it will always be life over property, is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
We're never going to say even if your car's being broken into right now, you're looking out your window and you can see the person breaking into your car. If I only have one cop to send, and it's either that or the home that's being broken into with people on the inside of it, guess what?
hmm hmm
Always, I'm going to always send it to where life has the potential to be in danger versus your vehicle, and which is just property at the end of the day.
Right. And I was in a training about wildfires and how to respond to them today, and a not just life but human life. So going to try and save people above
True.
animals, which
You're right. Yeah,
yeah, which I know a lot of people get irked by. You know, but like that's how you have to prioritize things because uh,
absolutely.
there it would be irresponsible to do anything else, and
Agreed.
really immoral when you get down to it.
Down to it. You're right. And I am, and you know this, I'm an animal lover. I am a 4 fur babies. I had got 2 of them, and I've had even my wet babies, which are the aquariums through the years. It's I would never dream of placing more value on either of those
Hmm.
than I would a human life. That is just it's a no-brainer.
Right. I don't know if people would agree to that 100% anymore, but like, because they really love their fur babies. Like,
I
uh,
mean, I love my fur babies too. However, if forced to choose between I don't know, a niece or a nephew
yeah,
or the fur baby,
yeah. Bye, Fido.
you know, Kizzy, I love you so much. It was lovely our time spent together, all the things. But no, but and sometimes it's hard to get. I know you might be we're making fun, but that is true. We are faced with choosing life over property, and even I don't know about anybody else, but in my years of dispatching, I have been forced to choose between 2 calls of the same priority, and now I have to begin to split hairs. Okay, I've got 2 priority ones, both of them have violence, but this one has the gun. This one, they're beating the crap out of each other, or he's beating the crap out of her. I'm hoping she can get away before, in time for me to get a cop to help. But this right here, I have to handle this.
Hmm.
And that is how that's I used to I when I'm training people, I tell them about the bucket list, right? So everything we do has a bucket. And if you find yourself with more than one thing in the same bucket, then you prioritize the bucket. Same, that's what we do every day, all day. And I think it's harder in the PD world because unless you have protocols that tell you what to do in every scenario, when you have that in like EMS, it's easier to me because ProQA is going to tell you this is what it is, this is how we respond, this is what the priority is. There's no human decision making in that. Does that sound
Yeah,
right? Do you know what I'm trying to
yeah,
say?
yeah. I get what you're
Yeah.
saying. And that I think is part of why there's a lot of stress on, you know, 911 operators and dispatchers because there are times where you do have to make that decision of, which call do I respond to? And you're
Hmm.
going to have to make the best decision you can. And it may be that the person you didn't respond to dies, but if you still made the best decision you can, that's all you can do. Because
Based on what's
in,
in front of you.
like, I don't know, like in our world, it seems people think sometimes uh, you don't have to pick the bad option, like the least worst option. But
Hmm.
in real life, there are times, especially when you work in a field that is pretty much directly uh, a field of bad things happening all the time. There will be times
Yeah.
where you have to pick the least worst option. There's not
Yeah.
necessarily going to be a winning solution.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the saying that we always hear, and I'm sure we all are familiar with, the lesser of two evils.
Hmm.
You have to
Yeah.
pick which one is worse. And I have, taking back to that call that I was describing about the potential gun, I remember one call that was that was very similar to that. We did have a physical disturbance that was happening and someone was, in danger. There was no doubt about that. And this was the report of,
Hmm.
not someone pointing at, but the report of. And my instinct was to, well, I don't really know for sure because somebody's telling me they think somebody might have. They're not pointing it at anybody, but because I don't know and the potential for I don't know, someone to lose their life at the hands of a gun is it's pretty up there versus I- we anguish over those sometimes, not for long, but we do
Hmm.
anguish over them. So we say split second decisions, but there's a lot of calculations going on in those split seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just have to weigh hundreds and hundreds of things, or sometimes it's only one or two things you have to weigh, which can also be a challenge. But
Yeah.
if you're in, sort of a dispatch profession, understand that you're going to sometimes have those be called upon to make that decision and
Mhm.
make the best one that you can. Understand that there are going to be days where there is no right answer,
Yeah.
you know, and don't don't feel like you have failed in any way. Do your
Yeah.
best.
It's the nature of the beast, if you will. There's just and I agree with you 100%. I think where we can do ourselves and our agencies, our first responders, and even the general public the best good is to be be mindful of the training that we've gotten, use the
Hmm.
resources that we have, remember our SOPs and our general orders or whatever that, but whatever the protocols are that have been handed down to you by your agency. Because where we get in trouble is going maverick.
Yep.
There's thinking outside the box, and then there's over yonder somewhere where nobody else is, and nobody's been over there, and you're the only someone over there. Matter of fact, there's nobody settled over there.
So absolute
There's
wilderness.
you know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
you have, especially like dispatching, is one such. Well, they would say do it this way. You send the two closest units or the two that um or available. But wait a minute, if I send the two that are available and they're like this, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the most efficient way to use my resources. So I am also required to use wisdom. I'm required to have good judgment, common sense. All that bundled up together equals critical thinking.
Mhm.
So that's what I mean by, it's okay to use everything that you have. And if you are at times presented with a situation where you have to think just a little bit outside the box to get it done, that's one thing.
Mhm.
But you or anyone else can point to their reasonings for why they're doing the things that they're doing. And they include all of their SOPs and their general orders and their good judgment and the critical thinking and just experience. All that you can point to that, you can argue that. But what you cannot argue is I made a judgment call, like they'd say on TV all the time.
Yep.
I made a judgment call based on what?
Yeah. Where was your judgment coming from?
It's- Yes, that's where. So if you're looking at this, don't you go back to your agency and said, Erica said I could go completely rogue or maverick because
Mm,
I made a judgment call, blast it all. No, I did not say that, director. I didn't say that.
not at all. But also, kind of the flip side of that coin is when you're setting uh, the different urgency levels of calls. Because I think people have a tendency to say, "Oh, yeah, this definitely sounds like an emergency. Yeah, this definitely sounds like an emergency too. This one, yeah, I could see it as an emergency." And
Hmm.
what you end up doing is you make everything an emergency, and when you do that, you make nothing an emergency. Because if you're
Agreed.
yeah, if everything's on the same level, then you're. It's not saying that these calls are less important to you, but you've got to demarcate between things that have to be sent
Hmm.
now and things that could wait an hour, maybe 2 hours or longer if needed.
And I guess maybe it's on me to be the broken record on this episode, but I that takes me back to your the priorities that are set forward by your agency, whether it be sworn or civilian or whatever your leadership is. They have sat down somewhere with more than just themselves, and they have come up with the reasons why a priority one, just for the sake of the conversation, is a priority one and a three is a three. There's a reason for that. And like Gary said, if you are making everything an emergency, you're making nothing an emergency. That's not good either. It's best that you stick to the guidelines that you've been given. Um, it, it's the safest place, and it's going to make sure that you make the best choice too, because you're not going to go so far off to the Netherlands. It's just out there. I just
That unexplored wilderness.
Well, yeah, because you can't. So you as supervisors, we've seen this where we've had 911 call taker trainees come through and they disagree with the priorities of the call.
I've never seen that before in my life. What are you talking about?
Really?
No,
Okay,
I've
where
seen it
you
all the
been?
time, all the time.
But they do. They do. They disagree. They're like, "Well, I think it should be higher." Why? Well, because they're upset. I get it. But there's a reason why it's this priority because of X, Y, and Z. That's why I'm saying, regardless of how you may personally feel about it, you may be triggered by the caller with the detached garage that's being broken into because that was you Gary was talking about at the top of the show. But
Yeah.
you can't let your familiarity with how that person might be feeling cloud the judgment that we are expecting for you to use. We
Mhm.
can't allow that. And we can relate and we empathize, but we can't allow that to cause us to not use the tools in front of us.
Right. Yeah, and, like, it not only are you expected to do that, but, like, required to because
Mhm.
you'll be not using your resources in the best way possible, and in this profession, that means people will die, and there's, like, no better way to put that, I can't church it up or anything, if
Yeah.
you're not using your resources to the best of your ability, uh, then that's the end of the line for some people.
And then, we can take it all the way back to our tort episode where we're talking
Mhm.
about and we were talking about we need to prep for that episode a little more about where your liability meets your immunity as someone who's operating in good faith. When you don't use the tools that are in front of you, when you start going off on your own, then you're not protected any longer.
Mhm.
You're not protected, and so you're kinda leaving yourself out there. It's
Yeah,
it's a sad
absolutely.
it's a dangerous place to be.
Mhm. Yeah, out
Yeah,
out in the wilderness, as you said.
yeah, you are, and we can be held accountable for our action and or inaction. So I know we're talking about priorities and why we prioritize things the way we do, but I think it would be like you said earlier, irresponsible of us to talk solely about, priority 1 through whatever and not talk about our part in making sure that we stick to what those priorities are. And if we are going to go outside the box, have a very, very good reason and be able to articulate the why.
Mhm. Yeah. Just, demonstrate that something was happening between these 2 points, why you made a decision to do what you did.
Yeah,
Um, but, SOPs are standard operating procedures for a reason.
sure,
When everything's going standard, use them. But
sure.
there will be times when you get a call where it's like, "Oh, the Cessna crashed into a river." I don't really have a operating procedure for that. Uh,
Absolutely. That's
yeah.
where your good judgment, that's where your critical thinking, that's where everything that you have been taught, starting from day one all the way up to now, and everything that you've seen, life experience and common sense should play a part in the decision making that you have at that point. Because there's no
Yes.
SOP for that.
No. And it's impossible to you wouldn't even want to live in a world where there were that many SOPs. If your operations manual was like a foot thick and like you had to
Oh,
know, 800, 900 or
no.
1,000 pages, that would be
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
Because then
That would be
every day
awful.
you, yeah, every day you'd make a mistake of something. Like
Y-
you need to have
we had a
yeah,
boss.
yeah you need to have faith in yourself
Yeah.
once you've been doing the job for a while, that you know how to do the job and you know
Yes.
what the the purpose of the policies are for.
Hmm.
There's a reason for them. It's not just to take up, words on a page. There's a reason. So the why
Well
behind them
said.
and trust yourself.
That's well said. That not just for the sake of writing something down to say we wrote it down. It's designed to protect everybody involved from the public to the first responders who take care of the public to you who take care of the first responders and the entity in general. There's so many stakeholders involved, and
Yeah.
it is not up to us to go against the grain and decide that the priorities set forward by our agency are not right, and we have to fix it. Because what you've seen those baby call takers where they're like, well, I'm just going to put it in as this instead of it should be a 1. I'm going to put it down here at a 3 because it just doesn't sound that important to me. Bad idea. Bad,
Yeah.
bad, bad idea.
Why would you ever do that? That doesn't make any
Yes.
sense at all. Yeah.
Bad, bad, bad idea. But I guess in the end, what we're trying to say is the priorities are there for a reason. There's a method to our madness. I've said that to callers before. Here, I've had an opportunity once or twice through the years to explain this is why we do the way we do it.
Once or twice?
Yes, your call. Yeah, yeah, once, twice. Your call is important. Yes, this is true. However, this is where it ranks
Mm,
in line with all the others, and here's why it's that way. And I get that you're frustrated, and I'm so sorry that you're frustrated, but there really is a reason why we do the things that we do. It's not because we don't care about what's happening to you. It's because we have to think global. We have to think bigger
yeah,
picture.
exactly. And we're glad that all of you could think bigger picture with us today. We appreciate you listening, and we would love to hear any stories or thoughts that you guys have on prioritization, times it worked for you, times maybe you disagreed with it. You can
Yeah,
always shoot us an email to lifeline911podcast@gmail.com or leave a comment down below. See, I remembered again 2 weeks in
yeah.
a row.
So proud of you, Gary.
Thank you. And thank you. And from all of us here at Lifeline 911, I'm Gary.
I'm Erica.
And we will see you next week.
Thank you for watching our production of Lifeline 911. If you have any questions about today's topic or topics you'd like us to cover in the future, please reach out to us at lifeline911podcast@gmail.com. This has been a production of Lifeline 911 Podcast, copyright 2025. From all of us at Lifeline, stay safe out there. And until next time, this is Lifeline 911 signing off.